Okay, let's get going here. Hello everybody once again. This is just a brief video to introduce you to the idea of clause combining. I know there's another video on this channel that talks about it, but I want to go into it in a little bit more detail. Clause combining is actually pretty simple. I call it clause combining. In reality, we could also call it idea combining, because that's really what it is. This is just a little practice exercise that you can do on your own to help work on English grammar. This is actually good for native speakers and non-native speakers alike. So please don't feel bad if you look at this and say, wow, this is difficult at first. At first it is, but then it gets a lot easier as time goes by. So clause combining, to put it pretty simply, is just this. It's a couple of steps: determining a relationship between ideas, and then expressing this relationship using words, grammar, both, you name it. And finally, we need to make it appropriate for various levels of formality and purpose, because there are many ways to express a relationship using different words, grammar, etc. So we have to pick the one that's appropriate for the type of formality and purpose that we've got. Now, if you're wondering about this stuff, you can always check Halliday and Hasan's big book from 1976, page 226. They have a whole section on conjunction of ideas. If you decide to do that, good luck. Linguists actually hate reading that book because it's so difficult. That's why I'm trying to show it here and make it a little bit easier. Okay, now I know that doesn't make sense yet, so let's break this into pieces. Determining the relationship between ideas. Well, what does that mean exactly? Let's take a look. When we say, well, what do we mean by relationships? What we mean is the way that one idea relates to another idea, how they are connected. So here's two sentences. They're two very short sentences, or clauses, and that's why we call this clause combining. So here we go. I was tired. I went to bed. You can even imagine somebody from maybe like the East Coast saying, I was tired, I went to bed, where they don't show you how the two ideas are connected, but in your mind it's pretty clear that, this is the cause and this is the result. That's what's going on. So we have a relationship here of this one causes this one, or we could say this one is the result of this one right here. Being tired is a reason, and going to bed is the result. That's what we mean by the relationship between ideas. And you'll notice that each sentence has one big idea inside it. So by combining them, what we're going to do is figure out a way to show the relationship and put both of them together. That's the idea. Now, I mentioned Halliday and Hasan a second ago. That's because basically there's nowhere else to look if you're looking for the relationships between ideas and how we do cohesion in English. They literally wrote the book. It's actually called Cohesion in English. Seriously, that's Cohesion in English. That's the title of the book if you want to go and look it up. Put that in, boom, italics. Okay, the big relationships that they came up with when they're trying to figure out how ideas relate to each other in English were these: additive, adversative, causal, and temporal, which probably means almost nothing to you because they're big words and honestly nobody uses them anyway, which is why I've got some simpler versions of them right next to them. When we say additive, that's basically saying and. So, I like apples, and I like bananas, and I like oranges. We're adding more information. Adversative, when we think of that word, think like adversary, enemy, things that go against each other. The simplest way to think of that is but. So things like, well, I really wanted to buy a guitar, but I had no money. Two ideas that go against each other. We have causal, too, which is what we were just looking at right up here. Causal is always a little bit tricky because causal always involves a reason and a result, which is what we see here. I was tired, I went to bed. Here's a reason, here's a result. So causal is kind of tricky. And then we have Temporal, which I just used. I said and then. And then is one of the most common temporal links in English. It's also one of the areas where people make the most mistakes because there is a difference between then and then. We won't go into that right now. I just wanted to mention that. So we have these 4 types of relationships. Basically, and, but, so, then. They're the most common. That's not to say they're all of them, but they're the most common. Let's take a look here. I have some examples. So I could say something like, I ate a hamburger and made her some spaghetti. Ah, okay. I'm adding information. I did this and I did this. Easy enough. Here would be but, or adversative. Sorry, adversarial, like an enemy, whatever we want to say. I wanted a hamburger, but all the restaurant served was spaghetti. Whoops, I wanted this. The restaurant only serves this. This information goes against this information. Oh well. I wanted a hamburger, so I went to the restaurant. Aha, here's a reason I wanted a hamburger. So, here's the result. I went to the restaurant. Next up, I went to the restaurant because I wanted a hamburger. This is the backwards order from what we just saw. I went to the restaurant. This is the result because I wanted a hamburger. Aha, this is the reason. Okay. I ate a hamburger, then I went back to my house. This just shows me sequence, time. In this case, I could also say, and then I went back to my house. With that in mind, though, again, we're going to not talk about then or and then right now because it's too complicated. What I wanted to show you with that, though, is that we have some pretty common ways of linking ideas together. And, but, so, because, then. But, da da da, and again, but. This is our adversative but, saying that we have something that goes against all this right here. And what I wanted to say is, please remember that an idea can relate to another idea in multiple ways. So these are common, but they're not the only ones. We also have description. We can talk about what something looks like, sounds like, feels like, etc. Identification, saying who somebody is or what something is. Similarity, something is like something else. Exemplification, that means giving an example, saying something like, for example. So all of these are possibilities. As this series goes on, we're going to look at all of them, but we're going to start with the big ones. That's why we're starting with a basic introduction today. Now, when we talk about this, again, we say, determine the relationship between ideas, express this relationship using words, grammar, both. So we just looked at relationships between ideas, just like right here. I was tired, I went to bed. Here's our reason, here's our result. Okay. Next step, express this relationship using words, grammar, both. Well, how do we do that? Pretty simple, actually. There's a couple of different, well, I say a couple. Actually, there are many, many, many different ways to do this. Some of the simplest are to use conjunctions. I can say and, but, yet, so. All of those various ones right there. That's what we see up here to make these big words a little bit easier to understand. Instead of additive, I can say and, because that's what it is. So, we can use conjunctions to establish relationships. We can use conjunctive adverbs with ly. Now, don't get too worried when I say conjunctive adverbs. These are grammar words. They're really tricky. Even if you don't remember, it doesn't matter. You can just say ly words. That would be things like additionally, contrastingly. Those are ly words that link ideas together. We can do conjunctive adverbs with there and where. And you already know some of them, I'm sure. You probably know, sorry, my computer's being dumb. Actually, my computer's not, I'm being dumb. Sorry, so I apologize to you. Therefore, that's a type of adverb that connects ideas together. It shows the result of something, just like saying so. You probably have seen this one too, thereby. This shows that one thing led to another thing, that one thing was the cause of another thing. Here's another one, whereupon. Like we said right here, these are adverbs that start with there and where. So when I say whereupon, that's basically like saying when, or as soon as something happened, something else happened. Whereby. This is similar to saying how. These are all very old adverbs in English. So I can use conjunctions, I can use adverbs with ly, I can do there and where adverbs, and I can do other conjunctive adverbs, things like besides, instead. Now these ones are nice, additionally, contrastingly, therefore, whereupon, because I can identify them very easily. I say, oh, it has an ly, it has a there, it has a where. Okay, great. Other conjunctive adverbs are ones we just need to memorize usually, besides, instead, but you've probably seen them before. Prepositional phrases are another very common way to do this. We see this a lot. In contrast to this, in addition to this. These are all prepositional phrases. If you're wondering a little bit about that, you can check out some of the other videos on this channel. Or if you have questions, of course, email me and we'll see what we can do. And then we have phrasalized clauses. You'll see that Microsoft really does not like this word. In fact, if I right-click this, we see phrasal Z. Thank you, Microsoft. You're a genius. But in reality, when I say phrasalized clauses, this is a clause that has been turned into a phrase. So that's why we call it phrasalized clauses. So here's an example of that. Having established this. Taking this and making it into a long form, I could say, since I have established this. Now I have a clause because I have a subject and a verb. The verb here is now finite. That means I've limited it in time and identifying the subject too. But if I get rid of that, and there we go, bye-bye. If I just look at this, having established this, there's no subject here. And the verb is not really bound by time or by subject. So that's what happens when we take a clause and turn it into a phrase. That's a phrasalized clause. All right, these are all grammatical tools that we can use to show relationships between ideas. But that's not all. There are more complicated forms too. And you've probably seen a lot of these as well. There's subordinators, things like although. I just used one a second ago. I used since. Since is another example of a subordinator. It basically tells us that one clause is, well, we say subordinate. That means lower than or dependent on another clause. That just basically means it can't be by itself. It's like a 2-year-old child. You don't want the child to be by itself. Kind of like that. We have relative clauses as well. This is if we're trying to describe a noun. There's many ways to talk about this. The example that I have here, the reason that I went to sleep, people still debate this. Is this actually a relative clause, or is this some sort of noun clause adjunct to the reason? Whatever. The bottom line is we are taking a clause in here and we're using it to modify a noun. We have noun clauses as well. Something like, what I chose to do was go to sleep. I won't go into all the details right now. I'll just say, etc. There are a lot of ways of doing it. We're not going to go through all the really complicated ways here right now. I just wanted to show you that there are many tools that we can use to express the relationship between ideas. So that's basically that right there. Let's take a look one more time at what we said at the beginning here. We want to determine the relationship between ideas and then express this relationship using words, grammar, both. Finally, we make it appropriate for various levels of formality and purpose. So let's take a look at the example we had at the beginning. I was tired. I went to sleep. Now what we said was that one of them was a reason, and the next one was a result. Well, we identify this relationship, and now the question is, what tools can we use? What can we use to show this relationship? Well, one of them would be so, another one would be because. And then we get some more complicated ones. I'll just try to use so and because right now. The simplest one would be, I was tired, so I went to sleep. There we go. That shows that I have a reason, and then I have a result. Whenever we use so, it tells us what the result of something is. So always shows us a result. The opposite of that is because. Because always shows us a reason for something. That's why I cannot do this. If I say, because I was tired, so I went to sleep. Uh-oh, we can't have both of these. We don't want to have two things in a row right there. We have to pick one. This is just like using even though and but. We can't do that. We have to pick one or the other. So I could do this. I could say, because I was tired, I went to sleep. Aha. Now I've identified the reason. Great. So in this particular case, I can show a reason or I can show a result. I can't show both of them at the same time. Well, those are the simple ways, right? What about a more complicated way to put these ideas together? I'll take it and go like this. So, there we go. Sorry, no. I was tired, right? Yes, I was tired. I went to sleep. And as I said before, my computer's not being dumb. I am. Sorry. We still have that same relationship, reason and result. What's another way that we could put them together? Well, one thing that we can do is, I can take this one, I was tired. Let's see here. I can say as, and then I can go like that. As I was tired, I went to sleep. I can do another one here too. I could say, let's see here. Owing to the fact that I was tired, I went to sleep. With both of those, as and owing to the fact that, they both identify the reason for a particular thing. That's what we got. But that's not all that we can do. We can do other things too. I can do this. I can say owing to. I'm going to keep that, and then I'm going to take this clause and turn it into a phrase instead. So let's just go like this. Get rid of the fact that. I can't say owing to I was tired. Doesn't work because I've got a preposition right here. And after a preposition, we always have a noun. Whether it's a noun clause, a noun phrase, or just a noun, that's what we have to use. So I'm going to take this and turn it into a noun phrase. Let's see here. I was tired. Now, I could say owing to me being tired, and we'll look at that next time when we look at the and relationship. Owing to me being tired, I went to sleep. That sounds a little bit bad right now, so I think I want to do something else. Owing to my tiredness. Aha, owing to my tiredness, I went to sleep. I like it. I don't really like the word tiredness right here, though. I want to keep that same idea and maybe use a different word. Owing to my, what's another word for tiredness? Well, here, we can check something out. If we right-click on Microsoft, I can say synonyms. Ooh, nifty. Owing to my weariness, sleepiness. Oh, well, let's use weariness. Dink! There we go. Thank you, Microsoft. I'm sorry I insulted you earlier. Owing to my weariness, I went to sleep. And that's how it works. We determine the relationship between ideas, and that's what we've got here. Reason, result. We express this relationship using words, grammar, both. And we make it appropriate for various levels of formality and purpose. Now I want to ask you a question. Owing to my weariness, I went to sleep. Would you ever say that to people? If someone said, hey, why'd you go to sleep? Would you ever say, owing to my weariness, I went to sleep? No, this is not spoken English. This is very, very formal English. If I wanted to make it more informal, I would probably say, I was tired, so I went to sleep. That's more of a spoken tone. So that's basically it. Figure out the relationship, express the relationship, and make it appropriate for various levels of formality and your purpose. And that's basically it. I know I've said that several times already and I'm still talking, but really it's those 3 steps. The rest of it is looking at how you can express all of these different relationships. What are the words and the grammar that we use to do those? And that's what we're going to do next time. The first video in this series after this will be looking at the relationship and, the additive relationship. And that's basically all that we will cover today. Take a look at the next video for information on and when you get a chance. Good luck!